All we want is great people. That we can all agree on. How the heck do you pull that off?
That's the problem, right? Getting the right people.
For things like positions like the front desk, billing, practice manager, treatment coordinator, dental assistants, that type of thing. What we found is that a practice will perform at a much higher level, both in terms of patient satisfaction, quality, and financial performance, if the team members are using their natural strengths and talents in the role that they're being paid for every single day. It's a complete game changer.
I get exactly what you're saying is you're trying to figure out how this person carries himself and does it align with the office.
Most people aren't reading the full job descriptions, Gary. I think that the best advice I can give a dentist is hop on one of the job boards and just try applying for a job. You would be absolutely shocked.
Welcome back to another episode of Dental Marketing Theory. I'm your host, Gary Bird. I'm the owner of SMC National, where we help offices just like yours level the playing field against the big guys out there so you can grow the way that you want. But if you can't hire, you can't grow, and everybody knows that, and it's so frustrating right now. The job market's horrible. In today's episode, we have Dr. Michael Neal, who's the CEO of Build My Team, and he's going to break down the psychology behind hiring and also how the job boards actually work. A lot of AI and a lot of honestly shady things go on those places. And his company actually helps you weed through all of that. And this is really, really informative. You're going to get some tips and tricks about hiring and also a solution that will help you solve your problem much faster than you're doing it now. You're going to want to stay tuned for this one. All right, we are live. And today, this is probably the biggest topic or the most pressing topic, and I think everybody kind of concedes it at this point, is that, yeah, this is the number one biggest problem in dental. And people just don't fix it, right? So what is the number one biggest challenge dental professionals face in staffing their practices? I would love your thoughts on that, Dr. Neal.
Oh, sure. Easy. It's getting great people. It's so simple, right? All we want is great people. Now, that we can all agree on. How the heck do you pull that off?
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about that. That's the problem, right? Is that getting the right people.
It sure is. And where Build My Team is at with regards to that, we take a different tack. We approach things in terms of hiring people for natural strengths and talents, not experience. Big difference. Certain positions need experience. For example, licensed positions. You can't just roll up to a licensed position as a hygienist or dentist without that, obviously. However, for things like positions like the front desk, billing, practice manager, treatment coordinator, dental assistants, that type of thing, what we found is that a practice will perform at a much higher level, both in terms of patient satisfaction, quality, and financial performance, if the team members are using their natural strengths and talents in the role that they're being paid for every single day. It's a complete game changer.
Yeah, that is a different mindset, right? And let's be honest, I own a business, and I think everybody's been there. If you've ever owned a business for any amount of length of time, it's like somebody quits and you're like, stink, I got 2 weeks to fill that. And pretty much you're just like panicking because you can't fill that position yourself, right? And you got stuff that you're doing. So you end up just filling it with a warm body and maybe they had the experience, but they're not the right fit. So like, how do you... I love what you're saying is like, okay, we're just not getting a warm body that's somebody who has a license or somebody who's done this before. We're basing it off the skill set that they actually have. How do you break that down? Like, how do you look at that? How do you help somebody go through and navigate that? Let's say you're helping, do you help with doctors and hygienists or all team members, or how, let's start there. Like, who are you talking about? And then how are you breaking down their skill set?
What Build My Team does is we find amazing A players, B+ players for the unlicensed positions. And so that's anything without quite simply a license. How do we do that? Well, it's done through assessments. So what dentists are doing right now and practice managers are generally hiring through using resumes. They don't work. That's one of the key sources of the frustration for the owners and the practice managers. You post a job, you get a bunch of resumes, you take a look at these resumes, and most of them are somewhere between garbage and junk. You're just not going to be able to look at a pile of resumes and figure out who the terrific potential team members are. So our approach is all through an automated process where we determine what their natural strengths and talents are. And by doing that, we can say, for example, and keep in mind, this varies by position. A great front desk receptionist, a dental secretary is not the same type of person you want to hire to be a biller, is not the same type of person you want to hire to be a treatment coordinator, et cetera, et cetera. So each of these different roles has natural strengths and talents built into the, air quotes, algorithm for the position, if you will, like what makes a terrific person in that role. And when you can match the desired performance in the role to a person who actually does that on an average day, oh boy, the sky's essentially the limit.
Got it. Okay. So you're just to reframe that. So you're helping dentists hire other team members that aren't dentist and hygienist, basically. So almost everybody else in the practice. And then you are having them fill out assessments as the leader instead of, hey, here's a bunch of resumes. And so those assessments are then categorizing that person into different buckets. Is that right? It's like could you help me understand that a little bit more for somebody who doesn't hire people all the time?
Yeah, it's just what Build My Team does is essentially an end-to-end process where our team members will talk to the practice owner, the practice manager, and find out exactly what position you want. Then we write the job description, post the job to 20 different job boards, get a lot of applicants, a completely overwhelming amount of applicants. But remember, our system's automated. Yeah, if it was something, you'd run out of paper to print these resumes out. But since it's automated, what our software will do is determine what these people's natural strengths and talents are. And then when they're all done that process, they go through a video interview where we're going to make sure that they would represent your practice properly. And then we recommend the finalist candidates to the practice. And just to give you an idea, Gary, practice can go through this entire process with net less than an hour's worth of work.
Voting is open for Dental Woo's top dental podcast. It starts on November 1st and ends on December 31st. Each vote supports the podcast. Last year, we won multiple top spots, and this year, we're hoping to do even better. This year, our goal is to get 1,000 unique voters on this podcast. Help us reach our goal, and your vote will count. Voting is easy. Just click the link below and find Dental Marketing Go, and then submit it. It's super fast. Got it. Okay. And then what? So I love that, by the way. And I know dentists love that because they don't have to sit there and wade through all those people. So that's huge. But what I'm interested in is like the psychology behind what you're doing on weeding these people out automatically, right? Like what are the assessments? Like break that down, because that's also going to be, that's your greatest strength, but that's also going to be the thing the doctor questions the most, right? Is like, wait, did you weed out the good people? Did you get like how? So it's like it's a huge upside, but it's also that that lingering question in the back of people's mind.
Well, I'll tell you the big picture, and then I'll tell you how we do that. First of all, the big picture is we're not looking for the A players and the winners right out of the gate. We flip it around. We're doing this upside down relative to what you're doing with resumes. We're looking at everybody who cannot do the job. That's pass number one. Imagine a monster funnel. Okay, you're pouring all these candidates into the top of the funnel. The first step is to ask them to take an assessment. About half of them don't want to do that. The reason they don't want to do that is they don't care about anything that requires them to work. They just applied at a dentistry position because they knew that they would get a stable paycheck, work in the air conditioning, not have to dig holes all day long, etc. So that's the first pass. Next thing we do is we measure their mindset. We make sure they have a healthcare mindset. A lot of them don't pass that either. They don't want to help people. They just want a paycheck, air conditioning.
Got it. What's a healthcare mind check? What is that?
They want to work in a private practice. They like to help people. They want to care for people. We have a whole bunch of components of that breaks that down.
Is that similar to what a healthcare mindset? Would that be similar to like a teacher or someone like that? Or what a healthcare mindset? What is that similar to? Something else in the world that's more broader?
Well, generally somebody who's motivated by helping others. And boy, oh boy, it sounds so stone cold obvious, right? But for everybody who's working in healthcare, you're like, well, why wouldn't you want to help people? But the cold hard reality is most of the people applying, the majority of the people applying to those jobs don't want to. They're looking for, again, a stable paycheck, air conditioning, office job, that type of thing. The list goes on. So once they pass that, the next thing we're measuring is their speed of learning. Because if these people don't learn reasonably quickly, it doesn't work. If they learn slowly, you'll train them forever. If they learn too quickly, they're not going to stay in your practice because it's not challenging enough. There's a sweet spot, and that's something you can't possibly determine through a normal interviewing process.
How does that work? Like, what's the difference? I think we've all worked with fast learners before, and slow the people who don't have the ability to really pick up on things, right, and learn and grow. So how do you delineate those? Like, how do you know? Because you're right, in the interview, everybody's going to say the right things, right? You're not going to be like, oh, this person isn't going to learn fast. So how are you able to identify that person?
We use an instrument that measures it. It measures their level of intelligence and breaks it down into 6 different categories. That's what we're doing. This is by no means, hey, Gary, you smart?
And that's what I'm trying to understand is like, so how do you actually do that? Is it through like questions is it through questions and answers, or is it like multiple choice, or like what? I'm trying to like visualize how you would figure out if someone's a quick learner on a survey.
Yeah. It's all done through their cell phone, and there's a little bit of secret sauce built into that. But we are able to delineate if they learn too quickly, too slowly, or if they're in kind of the sweet spot. And once that's done, the next thing we're looking for are their characteristics, their natural strengths and talents. So there's certain things like, and this is straightforward, we're measuring their stress tolerance. If they're going to work at a front desk in a super busy dental practice, they will need to have a high stress tolerance. If they're going to be in a dental assistant position in more of a concierge practice, they're not going to require that as much. So again, each of these roles are specific to your practice. And that's what's critical. These aren't cookie cutter. It's your practice. That's why when we start an experience with one of our new clients, we have a discussion with them about their practice, because we have to tailor these results and the types of candidates that we're getting to your practice.
Got it. Okay. So then now that you've went through, you got all these resumes, and then you start to actually boil it down and you start to break it down. What's next from there? What's the next step now that you have some of these people that are interested?
Yeah, great question. So we're not starting with resumes. We're not actually looking at resumes until the very, very end of the process, believe it or not. All a resume does is distract us from the main goal, which is to find these high-level talented people. So what our software does is the outcome is literally a thumbs up. The people that pass through the assessment process will be given a thumbs up, and then they're sent a video interview to complete. And in that video interview, we're not looking to see if they're male, female, black, white, green, pink, purple. None of that stuff matters. And I mean, it truly is immaterial. What we're looking for is, how do they represent themselves? How are they going to represent your practice? Are they speaking eloquently? Are they speaking with all kinds of slang? Do they have super funky green hair? Well, terrific. In some practices, that's fantastic. In other practices, it's not going to be fantastic. All kinds of things like that.
Do they have astronauts in their background, right? And stuff like that.
You know what? Your background, we talked about this before we started. Your background is really cool and funky. So in your type, if you were to run a practice, your type of practice would totally vibe with funky people. Some practices wouldn't. And so what we're doing there is...
I think about this a lot, like in marketing. I'm in marketing, so I'm not actually I'm in the dental industry, but I'm a marketer. And so there's a rule in dental marketing, or any marketing. If the person selling you marketing has a suit on, you're not actually talking to a marketer, you're talking to a salesperson. Right? Like, that's the rule. It's like, marketers don't want to wear suits. They don't want to wear ties. Nothing against those. It's fine if you want to wear those. But marketers have a different kind of mindset, where sales have a totally different kind of mindset. So I get exactly what you're saying, is you're trying to figure out how this person carries himself and does it align with the office.
Yeah. And now let's use that as an example, what you just said, because imagine you have a marketer and a salesperson in a dental practice. I'm going to ask you, Gary, to go be a salesperson. Are you going to be successful at that? Do you really bring those strengths and talents, or are you better positioned in a marketing role? I mean, we know the answer to that. But in a dental practice, it's not something that is a question that's usually asked. Hey, Gary, if you work in role A, we need role B filled. Do you mind just rolling over to role B and giving that a shot? It might be a completely different level of strengths and talents, right? So I could give you an example of that. In particular, in our practice, because I'm a practicing doc as well, about 50%, believe it or not, of the people who apply for a position in our practice don't get that position. They're moved to a different one. a completely different position. And the reason they're doing that is because when they apply, they have no idea what their natural strengths and talents are.
Got it. So as people move, so a lot of times one of the reasons that people get hung up on hiring and whatnot is because the person who is looking for the job, they don't even know what they want.
Most people aren't reading the full job descriptions, Gary. I think that the best advice I can give a dentist is hop on one of the job boards and just try applying for a job. You would be absolutely shocked. In fact, our software is built so that the applicant's cell phone gets a text message within 5 seconds. It used to be 10. You know why it's not 10 anymore? 10 was too slow. They were already on to job 2 or job 3 in the application process, and they would forget what job they just applied for. I'm not exaggerating. These things are built to get as many applicants as possible. It's kind of like Amazon with Amazon Prime. You can order anything in just seconds, right? They've removed all barriers to entry to ordering on Amazon Prime. And it's the same thing with these job boards. So when the reason their cell phone has to buzz so quickly is that they are still on your particular job, and that's how fast our software is able to do that. And it's also working 24/7 because these people are applying for jobs all hours of the day. It's remarkable. I would have never predicted that prior to seeing the back end of this stuff. But you're talking about people who are applying at 3, 4 in the morning for jobs. And when you're using an application process where that's not being responded to right away, you're at a disadvantage. And the other thing I can mention is that when we're talking with dentistry, dentists think that the people who are generally applying to their practice are only applying in dentistry. So do eye doctors, so do chiropractors. We're all thinking like that. The truth of the matter is they're applying to healthcare practices. So your dental practice isn't just competing with other dental practices. It's competing with everybody who has a private practice healthcare role in the geographic area. And you think about that for a second, you have to change how you're doing this process, or all of a sudden you're not just competing with dentists, you're competing with all kinds of other people.
You're competing, especially for the non-clinical positions. Yeah, you're competing. Like as an example, a lot of people who work at my company, which we're remote, we have healthcare. We have 980 schedules, meaning you work a little bit extra each day, but you get every other Friday off. So you always got 3-day weekends, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we work with a lot of people who used to work in office, but now they work from home. So you are competing. The market has become a lot bigger. What's another thing when it comes to all this, because a lot of it is psychology and then algorithms and the apps and online and a lot of social gamifying. What are some other things about some of these online platforms that we all use for hiring that you've learned that kind of blow your mind that people would be shocked by?
They're focusing 100% on resumes, because that's what they've got. And the sheer fundamental problem with a resume is that it just simply doesn't tell you what the strengths and talents of the person are. It tells you what they've done so successfully in the past that they quit the job. So that's the fundamental issue with them. Now, they're doing all kinds of things to make it easy for applicants to apply for things like that. But the fact of the matter is that's how it's designed. Now, there's also a new sheriff in town when it comes to that. It's called AI. We've all heard about it. Everybody knows all kinds of stuff about AI. There was an article I read where a fellow applied using AI for 44,000 jobs. He got a 0.15% response rate and ended up getting a bunch of interviews for these jobs that he didn't personally apply for. He used AI. There are job application sites like that coming online where, as a practice owner, I have to tell you, it's just a diabolically rigged game against the practice owner. These folks are applying. You're going to get folks who have never heard of you sending you their resume, and all of a sudden you're just spinning your wheels and going through all kinds of BS, trying to figure out why these people aren't calling you back, why they're not this, why they're not that. They've never even heard of you. The AI did it for them. How's that for a challenge?
What are your thoughts on ghost jobs? Do you know what have you heard about that, ghost jobs? Okay, so when I say you'll get it, it's just I've read articles about it. So ghost jobs in the online world, and the government plays into this a lot too. There's all these jobs. So they'll say there's 40,000 jobs or there's 100,000 open jobs and nobody to fill them. But when you actually go through and you start looking at these jobs, a lot of them are fake, right? So like some people are just always hiring because they know someone's going to quit in the future. So they just kind of throw their bait out there with the net, right? And they're just collecting resumes. So that's not a real opportunity if you're really looking for a job this month, right? And then there's other people who post, and these are usually bigger companies that do this one. There's the post job, so it looks like they're growing, but they're really not growing and they're really not hiring, and it's just they just post the jobs to be out there. So there's I've heard different numbers all over the place, but there's all these fake jobs out there that, to your point, you're applying and you never hear back from people, and it's very frustrating. What are your thoughts on that? Is that a real thing from your point of view, and or is that something that you've seen?
Yeah, sure it is. So this isn't necessarily as applicable in a healthcare setting, because when dentistry practices are hiring, they're actually hiring almost all the time, right? But let's say, for example, in a startup role, one of the best ways you can position your company to look bigger than it is to be hiring all kinds of positions, right? And for the very large companies, there are organizations that will look at the open positions in order to gauge their growth, their trajectory, all kinds. I mean, that's one of the oldest tricks in the book with hedge funds. They're looking which direction these guys are actually moving via job posts. But in the healthcare side of things, I really don't see that as much. What we do from our standpoint with Build My Team is, as the applicants come in, we actually track them all, and it's plotted for our clients, so they can see how many applicants they're getting a day. They can see when it starts to tail off. They can see the big rush as soon as a job goes live, that type of thing. So this is all insider information that our clients get.
That's so cool. If someone says, hey, you know what, I don't want to go through and learn all this stuff that you guys just talked about. I don't want to learn about all the psychology. I don't want to comb through all this stuff. I just want to have somebody else do it for me. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Sure. The ideal client for us is somebody who believes in using the strengths and talents approach versus hiring for experience. Once you make that jump, we are an absolutely incredible fit for your practice. And easiest way, buildmyteam.com. Just go to www.buildmyteam.com. You schedule a free consultation with one of our team members, and they're going to ask you a whole bunch of questions about your practice. Find out what makes your practice tick and the type of person that would be best for the particular roles that you're hiring. Also wanted to mention, it's a flat fee. We do not have any type of additional compensation if you spend a ton of money on the person, nothing like that. That goes counter to our long-term goal of filling these positions in your practice and helping you create the amazing team that, for example, amazing marketing and that type of thing can be built on. Because unless you have an amazing team, it's going to be really tough for you to build these marketing platforms, have them executed properly, anything along those lines.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for jumping on today and sharing this with the world. This is a really interesting topic and definitely a big problem to be solving.
Thanks so much, Gary.